Okay, let's dive in. Think about this. Have you ever been in that situation? Maybe after some kind of mandatory training at work, an inclusion workshop, maybe, and someone says something off. Bias, perhaps, or just plain insensitive, and you feel it, right? That little spike, that tighten in your chest. You think, I should say something, but you don't. You just freeze. What's happening there? That moment, that paralyzing silence, that's really what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into a really insightful set of sources. They're built around this story, this vignette called Charlotte Meets Emily When Politeness Meets Resistance. And these sources use something called the Six Stages Framework, the SSF, to help us understand these reactions. So our mission today, it's pretty clear. We want to unpack the difference between someone like Charlotte, who's aware but silent, that's stage +1, and someone like Emily, who seems unaware and gets defensive. That's stage MIC1. And crucially, why do both reactions, even though they seem worlds apart, end up letting harmful situations, well, just continue?
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's so common, isn't it? The sources we're looking at, they aren't just making this up, like you said. This scenario, it happens all the time, especially right after those training sessions.
Right, when everyone's maybe a bit on edge or thinking about things differently.
Exactly. People are either newly sensitized, maybe like Charlotte, or sometimes newly resistant, like Emily seems to be. The tension is high.
Okay, let's paint the picture then. Charlotte and Emily, they're in the office staff room. You mentioned the training just finished, so maybe the air's a little thick. That awkward post-training quiet.
Precisely. Everyone feels a bit exposed, maybe?
Yeah.
And into that quiet steps Emily. Maybe she's feeling challenged, maybe just uncomfortable with the whole diversity conversation, and she tries to, break the ice?
With a
Joke on.
joke? Okay, what does she say?
She looks around, apparently quite casually, and says, well, I guess we've ticked all the diversity boxes now, haven't we?
Oof. Yeah, I can imagine how that landed.
Like a lead balloon, according to the sources. The room just freezes instantly. And there's this detail in the sources. It mentions a colleague, a new team member, who is a black neurodivergent woman, and her reaction. She immediately looks down into her tea. The impact is right there, visible.
Wow. Okay, so the harm is clear, even if it's subtle. And Charlotte, she sees this.
She absolutely does. She recognizes the insensitivity straight away.
And the vignette gives us her internal thoughts, right? What's going through her head?
It's classic stage +1 thinking. She's rationalizing. She tells herself, I convinced myself that staying silent was being professional.
Ah, the professionalism shield.
Exactly. But then she admits, very honestly, I wanted to say something, but I didn't.
So awareness is there, the desire is there, but the action, silence, driven by what? Politeness? Fear?
A mix of both, it seems, which we'll unpack. But then look at Emily's reaction to the silence.
Right, because the room froze. How does she take that?
Not well. She doesn't seem to read the silence as, hey, maybe that joke wasn't okay. She feels the discomfort, but she reads it as other people's problem.
So she gets defensive.
Instantly, she pushes back, almost like she's trying to regain control of the situation. Her reaction is, oh, come on, I was only joking. People are way too sensitive these days.
The classic just joking defense, followed by blaming sensitivity.
And boom, right there you have the two stages laid bare. Charlotte's silent awareness, Emily's defensive resistance.
So let's use the 6 stages framework now. How does it label these two responses specifically?
Okay, so Charlotte, as we hinted, she's a perfect example of stage +1. Emerging awareness. This is someone who's starting to get it.Maybe that training did land for her. She understands bias intellectually. She knows something was wrong with Emily's comment.
But knowing isn't doing.
Exactly. The defining behavior of stage +1 is awareness without action. They're kind of paralyzed.
And why? What's the primary fear driving that paralysis for someone like Charlotte?
According to the framework, it often boils down to social fear, the fear of rocking the boat.
Okay. Not wanting to cause conflict, make things awkward, maybe damage relationships.
Precisely. She sees the issue, but the perceived social cost of speaking up feels too high. Maybe she lacks the confidence. Maybe the workplace doesn't feel safe enough.
Or maybe she just doesn't know what to say.
That too. She lacks the language, perhaps. So she defaults to what feels safe. Silence, masked as professionalism.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's swing over to Emily. Stage -1. That sounds quite different.
It is. Stage -1, unaware and resistant. The key here is both parts. It's not just ignorance. It's an active resistance to these new ideas, these concepts around inclusion, bias, diversity.
So her joke wasn't just clumsy. It was maybe a form of pushback against the training itself.
Very likely. The sources describe this stage as stemming from unchecked privilege and discomfort with difference. The training, the focus on diversity. It challenges her view of the world, her comfort zone.
And she reacts by trying to diminish it, make light of it, or dismiss it.
Yes. And often, that resistance masks anxiety or insecurity. The defensiveness, I was only joking, the people are too sensitive. It's all pushback.
So her core fear isn't social awkwardness like Charlotte's. What's Emily afraid of?
The framework suggests her primary fear is accountability.
Accountability, meaning being held responsible for the impact of her words.
Exactly. She doesn't want to have to examine her words, her assumptions, or how they affect others. Dismissing the impact, just joking, is a way to avoid that accountability.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? Because you've got Charlotte, internally aware, wanting to do right but silent, and Emily, actively resistant, defending her comment.
They seem like polar opposites in terms of their internal state and motivation, miles apart.
The framework, the sources, they argue that the result is disturbingly similar, especially for that colleague looking down at her tea.
That's the core, really critical insight here. Let's break it down. The differences are clear. Awareness level, Charlotte's beginning, Emily's unaware or rejecting it. Motivation, Charlotte wants inclusion internally, Emily wants comfort. Action, silence versus defensiveness.
Okay, clear differences. But the similarity.
The crucial similarity is that neither response effectively challenges the bias. Neither stage +1 nor stage -1 stops the harm.
Charlotte's silence lets the comment hang in the air, unchallenged. Normalized, almost.
Precisely. It signals that, okay, maybe that kind of comment is acceptable here, even if some people feel uncomfortable.
And Emily's defensiveness, that shuts down any chance for learning or repair right there.
Completely. She deflects, avoids accountability, and signals that she's not the problem, the sensitive people are.
Wait a second. Are the sources saying Charlotte's inaction, her politeness, is systemically the same as Emily's active resistance? That feels harsh.
Systemically, yes. It's provocative, I know. But think about the impact on the workplace culture. Charlotte might feel she's taking the high road or being professional, but her silence upholds the status quo just as effectively in that moment as Emily's comment created it.
So the system, the office culture, where that kind of joke can happen and pass without comment, stays exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Charlotte's good intentions don't interrupt the dynamic.
That really challenges the idea of the innocent bystander, doesn't it? If your silence props up the problem.
It does, which leads to this really powerful quote from the analysis that people should remember. But silence sustains systems.
Silence sustains systems, wow.
It implies that awareness, that stage +1 state, is necessary, sure, but it's absolutely not sufficient. Action is required to change the system. Inaction, even well-intentioned inaction, is functional acceptance.
Okay. That's a heavy realization. If both stage +1 silence and stage -1 resistance keep the harmful system going, how do people move forward? The framework must offer some path for growth, right? Charlotte and Emily can't need the same thing to progress.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The SSF is useful because it identifies specific needs for each stage. What helps Charlotte won't work for Emily, and vice versa.
Let's start with Charlotte, stage +1. She's aware, but silent. What does she need to bridge that gap between awareness and action?
She doesn't need more awareness training, right? She's got that. She needs support to act. The sources list 3 key things. First, and maybe most importantly, psychological safety to speak up.
Meaning she needs to feel confident that speaking up won't backfire on her, that she won't be punished, ostracized, or labeled a troublemaker.
Exactly. If the environment feels risky, politeness and silence will almost always win out over the impulse to intervene. Safety is foundational.
Okay, safety first. What else?
Second, she needs the language and confidence to respond. It's one thing to feel something is wrong. It's another to know what to say in the moment.
Right, like having some simple phrases or strategies practiced so you're not fumbling when the moment hits.
Precisely. Scripts, role-playing, practice these.
Yeah.
Build the confidence to actually use your voice effectively and respectfully. Not aggressively, but clearly.
Makes sense. Safety, language. What's the third thing?
Third, she needs role models who disrupt bias respectfully. Seeing others do it successfully is incredibly powerful.
So if she sees a manager or a respected peer intervene well, it gives her a kind of permission slip.
And
a blueprint.
Exactly. It normalizes speaking up and shows it can be done without disastrous consequences. It models the how.
Okay, so for Charlotte, safety, language, and role models, that feels practical. But Emily, stage -1, resistant. What's she need? You can't just hand her a script.
No, because she doesn't believe there's a script needed. Her needs are fundamentally different and arguably much harder to address.
Where do you even start with someone who's actively resistant?
The sources suggest the first thing Emily needs is a mirror to see the impact of her words.
A mirror. How does that work?
She needs feedback somehow that connects her joke to actual harm. Not abstractly, but concretely, like pointing out the colleague looking down at her tea. She genuinely might believe she was harmless. The mirror is about helping her see the disconnect between her intent and her impact.
That sounds tricky. Likely to trigger more defensiveness, right?
It definitely can, which is why the second need is crucial. She needs a mentor to challenge her resistance.
Not just anyone giving feedback, but someone specific.
Ideally, yes. Someone she respects, maybe a peer or leader, who can have a direct, perhaps private conversation. Someone who can acknowledge her perspective or discomfort,
Okay, validate her feelings a bit.
but also firmly hold her accountable for the impact. Someone who won't just accept the "I was joking" or too sensitive lines. It requires skill and relationship.
A challenging conversation, no doubt. Okay, a mirror for impact, a mentor for challenge.
Yeah.
What's the final piece for Emily?
The third need is motivation to move beyond comfort. Right now, her comfort zone is being prioritized.
So she needs a reason to want to change. What's in it for me? Beyond just avoiding trouble.
Pretty much. She needs to see a personal benefit to embracing inclusion. Maybe it's framed around better teamwork, innovation, career growth, stronger relationships, something that resonates with her values or goals.
Not just a list of rules and don'ts.
Exactly. Without intrinsic motivation, any change is likely to be superficial or temporary. She needs to see value in moving towards something better, not just away from criticism.
Okay, that paints a clear picture. Very different paths for Charlotte and Emily. So bringing this all back, what does this mean for you listening right now? The sources really stress this Charlotte and Emily dynamic. It's not some rare event. It's playing out constantly in workplaces, maybe even in our own lives.
We all probably shift between these stages sometimes, depending on the context, the topic, maybe even how tired we are.
So this framework, it's a tool for reflection. The experts behind these sources pose some direct questions we should ask ourselves. First, where do you see yourself in this interaction? When you picture that staff room scene, who do you identify with more? Are you more like Charlotte, feeling that awareness, wanting to speak, but getting stuck in silence, maybe out of politeness, maybe fear? Or, let's be honest, are you sometimes more like Emily, quick to get defensive if your words land wrong, maybe sometimes relying on just joking when you feel challenged?
And maybe the biggest question to sit with is the one you raised earlier. What holds you back from speaking up? What are those specific barriers for you?
It really forces you to look beyond just good intentions, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The core message here, I think, is that workplace culture changes through visible actions, not silent awareness. The big hurdle for most organizations isn't usually outright malice, like a staged negative two-person might show. It's often the inertia, the collective silence of well-meaning people stuck in stage +1.
Which brings us to that final, really provocative thought from the sources, the one that kind of sums it all up.
Yeah, it's a powerful takeaway. It hits home that simply being aware, simply not being Emily, isn't enough. The realization is stark. Politeness is not inclusion.
Politeness is not inclusion. Wow, let that sink in.
True inclusion often requires disrupting polite silence. It requires moving from just feeling like Charlotte to acting differently. The real work, the personal deep dive, is recognizing how often our own desire for comfort, for politeness, might actually be the barrier to creating the inclusive environment we say we want.
So if this discussion struck a chord, if you recognize yourself in Charlotte and want to move past silence, keep exploring this. Look into the 6 stages framework more deeply. Search for practical strategies around #bias awareness and building real #psychological safety.
Not just the appearance of safety through silence, but actual safety to speak up respectfully.
Stay reflective, everyone. Try to be brave in those moments. And remember, don't let politeness keep sustaining systems that need to change.